Hello everybody, before we start this video I'd like to give a shout out to 4 people this time. Dory, all this week we're doing Krisbrine, Frostbrine, Minecraft, Nightcore, Nico Bellisario, Lovely Lucy, and Ragnar AMVS. And we're only at SHOUTOUT Super 5 as well as everyone for the Mass Legion and everyone in the SHOUTOUT Patrol made by Family Manny Posse. We wish you good luck in your ongoing future. Now, any further ado, let's begin your featured presentation. Hope you all enjoy the video and have a good day.
Hello everybody, my name is Seanster Super 5 and welcome everyone back to another episode of Seanster Plays Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Last time we started the Legend of the Star Heroes, where we saw how the beginning began, or the story began, with the Chosen by the World Chalice, or World Legacy, where we saw four friends, Arum, Eve, Imduk and Ningirsu, going out into the world and trying to save their world from the Mech Knights with the power of the World Legacy artifacts. But then it sort of got a little bit hazy right when we got into Gift of the Martyr, where Eve got kidnapped. We had to go save her, and then we also were looking for the power of the World Shield. It was a very tight duel, and we encountered a few individual cards called the Nightmares that apparently, Lee the World Chalice Fairy from last week is apparently evil according to this story mode. Well, it's quite an unexpected twist, but then sadly it did end up with Eve's tragic sacrifice. But today we're going to be continuing on with the second half of the Legend of the Star Heroes now. Before we start, I would like to keep everyone up to the loop that this part has the most story parts out of every World Legacy story that we've been covering so far. If we have time to have a duel in between, then you know, we'll see how it gets on. But if we don't have time for a duel, and if it's all going to be focused on story mode, then don't worry, because next week we'll be back to our usual 3 to 2 archetypes per week, so I can guarantee you there's going to be a lot more duels ahead if we don't get a chance this week. But as we continue on with the secret powers of the planet and where the World Legacy leads, I hope it will be a good story all the same, and I hope that everyone in Arum's group will hopefully have a happy ending. If not, then well, you know, mind you, with these stories anything can happen. I mean, you know, first we had Cleat Forts that brought about the structure of the world. We had the Dino Mists, where they're basically, you know, mechanized dinosaurs ready to protect their world from natural disasters. Anything could happen here in Master Duel. So, before we start this video on the next lesson of the SHOUTOUT 2.5 Kazuki Takahashi Memorial School of Dueling, yeah, as for updates, this next week it is going to be pretty light, considering we've only got 2 more episodes of the SHOUTOUT vs. What Ifs for this year, 2 more episodes of Ozma's Wisdom for June and July, same as the SHOUTOUT vs. What Ifs. And then in August to October we're going to be having the SHOUTOUT Cut and Naruto. So the only update that I will, you know, keep everyone informed about at this time is that, well, I mean, I technically have 2, but the second is just a reminder of anything. But for the first one is that the next or the penultimate SHOUTOUT vs. What If for this year is coming out later this June, and hopefully by mid-June at the latest, and then after that in late June, that's when we'll get the second to last episode of Ozma's Wisdom before it all wraps up in early to mid-July and mid-July to late July with the final Ozma's Wisdom and SHOUTOUT vs. What Ifs. But the second, actually no, before we get to the second one, I will give you a little bit of a hint, because, you know, I like to give everybody a little bit of hints every now and then. The next SHOUTOUT vs. What If, the penultimate one, is going to be about Naruto. So, in other words, the next What If is going to be a prologue to the SHOUTOUT Cut of Naruto. Now, my goal of the SHOUTOUT Cut is pretty much how I handled Power of the Stars. I don't want to make it like, you know, too outside of the original story, because I know there's a lot of people who do appreciate the original story. So the few elements of the original story are going to be there, but there are going to be a slight few changes here and there just to make it all the more perfect. But, well, yeah, it's not point stressing about it now since it comes out in August, but, well, let's just say writing progress has been pretty interesting so far. But don't worry, Short Summation to Be Right is also being written too, so hopefully there'll be at least a few updates in November or December at the very, very, very latest. But the second update, and again, this is only a reminder, because in Genshin Impact, Yoimiya in version 3.7 has got herself her own story mode, alongside Baiju and Nahida, with the executive decision that the next next one-offs would be Layla's Hangout and Nahida's Story Quest. The question remains, so Nahida's off the list, so between Baiju or Yoimiya, which would you, my fellow family, friends and amigos, would like to see alongside Kabe's Hangout in the next trio of Genshin What Ifs? And, well, you know, even though one might not be chosen, and it may come down to a coin flip if the decision hasn't made. Sorry, I can't even speak today, I'm talking too fast. If the decision between Baiju and Yoimiya hasn't been made, don't worry, and no pressure at all. This will be decided by a coin flip that will be shown on screen, just like I did before with which series would come first between Master Duel or Genshin Impact. And frankly, I'm thankful for the coin's help, because if I did Genshin Impact for the channel as a series, there would be quite a lot to cover and a lot of things to level up to, but there you go. It was chosen at the time, but so far we're making very good progress in Master Duel, as I hope that these what ifs in Genshin will go. These what-offs, not what ifs. Okay, well, okay. Before I muddle up my words any longer or slip up my words, as they say, let's get right into the next part, the final part of our journey through the Legend of the Star Heroes. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and the series to come, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content coming soon. And we're already at Short Stupid 5, as well as everyone from the Mass Legion and everyone in the Short Patrol made by Family Manny Posse. I hope that everyone here today will enjoy this next upcoming part, and now we shall witness what happened to Arum and his friends as the Legend of the Star Heroes continues with the secret powers of their planet.
A few years have passed since that nightmare of a tragedy. When Arum awoke, he found that the girl and her brother were no longer with him. Was he really gone now? For good? The loss of the girl had its grip over Arum's heart like an unbreakable vice. I couldn't protect Eve. If only I was stronger, then her death could have been avoided. The battle had left a chasm in Arum's heart. Now that Eve was gone, Arum had tasted for the first time just how terrifying a battle could be, and how devastating losing someone you treasure could be. He didn't have the heart to go on with his journey, not for now. However, there was still one thing on his mind that bothered him. It was Ningirsu. Even now, Arum still had no idea where he had gone. No doubt despair had taken him, now that his beloved sister was no more, and when Arum thought about how Ningirsu must be feeling right now, his heart became fraught with an immovable weight. But that was exactly what Arum had to go for after his child-found friend, and so the swordsman resumed his journey with Imduk. It was when panic was beginning to settle in Arum's mind. Was it coincidence? Or did the Mech Knight that dwelling within him led it to that? He stumbled across a dormant crawler. It occurred to Arum that this might lead to a clue he could try and restore it, and see if its communication systems are still working.
That's a very good start, and yeah, there is a lot to cover, so, but time waits for no one, here we go.
Arum succeeded in restoring the crawler and gained access to its communication systems along with a number of records that detailed areas in which the swarms were active and the data on the locations where many crawlers had been destroyed. Perhaps there was some life left in those areas. And if there was, maybe we would know where Ningirsu had gone. Armed with his new clue, Arum set off to the areas he had gleaned off from the records. However, as useful as the information was, it was unfortunately didn't make Arum's expedition any easier. There was nary a sign of life to be spotted anywhere, and the journey was looking like it could end in vain. Nature, uncaring and relenting, continued to batter the two mercilessly. But at least a glimmer of hope at the end of the arduous tunnel. Arum and Induk had stumbled across the remaining tribes of the planet. That of the fiery Resials, the stalwart beasts, and the sacred lakeside trees. Although this encounter brought no clues to Ningirsu's whereabouts, Arum and Induk were blessed with the legends and knowledge of the tribes. And by linking them together, Arum was able to unlock the great secret power of the world and witness the tremendous power that slumbered in its depths. It made him think of the World Chalice's powers that were bestowed to him, but it was greater, far greater, hiding unbeknownst to the dwellers of the planet. Was this what Lee had sought? Arum thought.
Well, looks like we found another World Legacy artifact, everybody!
What were the more secrets dwelling beneath the surface? One of them was the Rebirth Records, inscribing with history of the planet, chronicles from generations long forgotten. And the other bygone memories of the planet's glorious age, where humans ruled from the apex. Long, long ago, there was a god who ruled the skies, with dragonkind as its disciples. It predatored the cycles of destruction and rebirth to maintain the balance of the realms. And my English is so bad. However, the scales of the destruction grew bigger each time, and one day, the balance of the two was thrown into great disarray. Once this delicate balance toppled, even the sacred skies could not hold back the destruction it wrought. The god decided that it could no longer oversee the skies by itself. With its powers of creation, it brought forth layers and layers of the toughest earth and sealed the powers of destruction within. With nowhere to go, the powers raged and raged until it boiled and scorched the very earth, morphing it. The torrent of power rushed through the land and merged with the powers of creation, leaking out at the surface. It became a small manifestation of a cycle of death and rebirth and gave life to the lands. With the last of its strength, the god then turned itself into a key and entrusted it to the life blooming on the planet before vanishing. In the years following its disappearance, the powers of destruction re-emerged on the surface many times. However, every time it did, the life of the planet would use the key and, with the help of the dragonkind, pushed it back to whence it came. Over time, the key came to be known as the Word, and the power of destruction as the Great Darkness. Thus, the great legend of the world hero was born. Starlit hero, your sword swart in light. May you triumph over the great darkness.
Very, very interesting. I wonder if this is prophesizing anything. One way to find out.
Decades, centuries, maybe millennia had passed since the beginnings of the rebirth of records. The land was now populated with life known as humanity. They were a civilization who had gained scientific knowledge and technological know-how, and were at the height of their prosperity. Their glory came at a cost, for it not only tore the planet's gifts away from it, but also the dragons who protected it. The gods and the dragons that once were had faded into obscurity as mere tales. And it was during this time that the key was excavated and uncovered. The humans were exhilarated by such a legendary mystical find. Although its authenticity became gradually acknowledged, some expressed worries and doubts at the discovery. What does this mean for the key to get resurfaced in this time? Was it an omen? warning of them of the inevitable battle between the world hero and the great darkness like the legends say. Now, they see the key existed in the sword form. Did this not also mean the powers of destruction were indeed sealed deep within the planet's crust? Humanity began to assemble their finest to analyze this key. Within the team that had formed, there was a scientist who was shown her talent in all the fields of medicine, astronomy, and archaeology. Her name was Lee. Lee was known all over the world as the foremost authority in computer science. The analysis was able to proceed smoothly thanks to her involvement, and not long after, the team branded itself as an organization called Crusadia, under the jurisdiction of the Confederation of Nations. Once they had analysed the key further, they began to draft a plan that would help fight the immediate threats of their planet. It would involve warriors of mechanical nature, and they call it Project Met-Night. Work was to proceed without a moment's delay. Meanwhile, Lee drew up a hypothesis and sought to validate it in secret. She wanted to get to the root of the appearance of the great darkness that the world hero legend spoke of. Recorded in the legend were multiple tales of the key being used to drive back the great darkness by harnessing the powers of creation and destruction. It was a simple enough story. The great darkness would appear and the world hero would fight it back with a key. However, could the reverse also be not true? That using the key was the very thing that grew the great darkness out? There were those who were entrusted with a divine mission, and the conspirators who sought to revive the powers of destruction. The world hero legend was ultimately a story of their power struggle over the key. Whoever has the key will control the fate of the world. Also went Lee's hypothesis anyway, and the more time she spent trying to validate it, the darker her ambitions grew. The divine powers will be mine.
Why do I get the feeling that this Lee and Lee, the World Child's Fairy, are the same? There's a plot twist coming, I can tell already.
A few years have passed now since the great Project Met-Night began, and finally, Met-Night of the Morning Star was complete. It had been fitted with a core powered by the key and possessed enough power to fight the most deadly of wars. However, an incident occurred during its test run with none other than Lee as its test pilot. With the key, she had reversed all of the celestial powers coursing through its mechanical body and diverted them to the planet's core, faster than anyone could make a move. Lee had planned this out before taking her place as test pilot. The power that had flowed into the planet's core split the lands, and once again the destruction from the within overflowed to the surface, scorching every bit of earth that it touched. The entire world was beginning to split apart in its unpredicted disaster, and the revival of the great darkness drew near and ever near. However, its resurrection was not without its obstacles. The Crusadia had created an assistive unit, 7 Met-Knights in total. The remaining Met-Knights faced off against Met-Knight of the Morning Star and destroyed it, sealing away the great darkness back within the earth once more. But what the great darkness was, at the end of the day, a divine force, one that the mortals failed to seal away completely. Inspired by the key, the team decided to put their powers into physical vessels of their own, and left them on the surface as legacies. Now the land was ruined. It was getting harder and harder to live in such conditions. It seemed that life on this planet would be gradually snuffed out, including humanity. The reason why the Master of the Key, the world hero, didn't appear in our time of need is because we humans drained the planet of its powers. Fought the Crusadia, but they began to mobilize to put an end to humanity's so-called glory, as it was the largest obstacle to the revival of the barren lands and the planet's chances of surviving. They left the 7 Met Lords they had built in their ruined land after they were programmed with instructions to help rekindle the planet. The Met Knights were also installed with the data of the Crusadia members that they had established a brain link with.
If the lands could be healed once more and the planet could be take back the power it once had, then perhaps they could avoid an imminent disaster. The Crusadia left all their hopes to a faraway future they may not even reach. However, there was one thing they failed to realize. The mastermind behind this incident was Lee, and she had already been taken by the burning lands. When she was found, she was already dead. But only flesh. Her soul had been released in its physical vessel and transferred into the World Legacy World Chalice, her will and knowledge. So they were the same person. Well, what a twist! Let's carry on, shall we? The tremendous power that dwelling within the planet was the very thing that Lee was after. Thought Arun. Suddenly he was struck by a sense of terror. He could only felt a great force of madness that threatened the planet. But from where, he could not tell. Perhaps somewhere it was beckoning to the darkness, trying to bring it forth. He had to stop them before another terrible disaster happened. In that moment in Arun's mind, the figure of Ningirsu appeared. The figure of his childhood friend tormented with sadness with the loss of Eve, seeking darkness in his despair of the world. Although slight, he could feel Ningirsu's presence within the malice. It couldn't be. Arun reined his uneased heart in. He would need help to stop this malice. He asked the elders of each tribe to lend them their strength. And they answered his pleas with a great number of warriors, and the tribes united in a formidable alliance. They named themselves after the warriors of old that their writings spoke of, and thus the second coming of the Crusadia was born. The Crusadia were taken to a hidden spot by the tribe of the sacred trees and activated World Legacy, World Crown. Arun and his companions now obtained power that could help them combat the malice that threatened their world. The Crusadia began their advance towards the giant tower at the center of all the malice. The accursed Babel towering into the sky and its metallic magnificence, surrounding it were the accursed. Mechanical weapons waiting on standby in silent formations. At the tower's base was Ningirsu, and activating the World Legacy World 1 was the only thing in his mind. Now that Arun could see his childhood friend, the swordsman could only think about how much sadder he looked. Arun prayed that he was only overthinking the situation, but he knew their reality was not a kind one. Ningirsu was here because he wanted the powers of darkness, and he was at the center of the malice Arun had felt. That was the truth that awaited him at the end after his long search. But no matter how much time had passed, no matter how things had changed, the one thing that remained the same was that Ningirsu was still his friend. Arun thought about what he could do now that he was here. He had to stop Ningirsu from starting a disaster that could mean the end of the world. Only one who could stop this villainy is me, Arun thought, gathering all of his courage. He signaled for his companions to mobilize, and now a new battle was about to begin. So Ningirsu pretty much went whole Sasuke on us. I wonder what happened to him. When Ningirsu saw what had happened, a bolt of guilt pierced through his grief. Even in his desperation, he never imagined this would happen. His eyes could hardly believe what they were seeing. How did this all happen so fast? He prayed that he was dreaming, and that he was going to wake up soon. All he wanted was to see his dear sister again. As the scene of another nightmare unfurled around him, he became embroiled in a storm of emotions. I need to save Eve. Even as his mind was numb with stupor, Ningirsu's body began to move without command. In what looked like an impulsive choice, he struck his childhood friend unconscious, taking both the other man's sword and Eve. What good was this world if Eve was not in it? He would do anything, be it good or evil, if it had meant he could only see her smile again. That single thought of getting her sister back was all Ningirsu needed to force his weary limbs forward. He had the Mech Knight's cause from when the 6 nightmares were defeated. And now, he also had the sword he took from Arum. Using the facilities that were still present in the Mech Knight headquarters, he analysed the artifacts with feverish desperation. This world possessed a mystical power similar to one of the world legacies, and if anything had a clue regarding its specifics, it would be the Mech Knights. They might even know a way of how to bring Eve back. Although he was unable to glean a way to resurrect Eve, he learned a great deal about the number of facilities from a certain ancient civilization. Ningirsu left the Mech Knight headquarters and set off to each one of them with the lifeless body of his sister in tow. Many of the facilities he visited had already ceased to work, and the ones that barely did provided little to no useful information. However, Ningirsu never gave up. There must be a way he could save Eve somehow. With that unwavering belief in his heart, he resumed his grueling journey. And finally, at long last, he discovered an ancient facility that was still in working condition. What could have Ningirsu found in there? Well, that's what this scenario is for, I guess. After countless weary roads walked, Ningirsu had finally gone through more information that any average man wouldn't have been able to understand in his life. He had thoroughly inspected the Mech Knight cores and several ancient facilities. With what he gathered, including files to the key on the key and technology that would have been long lost, he had finally unlocked the secrets hidden within the planet and the truths of the world that had been shrouded in mystery. Ningirsu trembled with joy. He could revive his sister now. With his newfound certainty, Ningirsu set about creating a vessel that could house Eve's soul using the ancient technologies. However, this task was to be the most difficult yet. Trial after trial resulted in countless failures, and their byproducts. And as the days tricked by, he had amassed enough vessels to create his own army. But at last, his efforts paid off. He finally created a mechanical doll that would work. By synchronizing the doll with the body of his dead sister, he also succeeded in reinstalling the functions of one of the twin swords vital to his plan. So much time had poured into this endeavor, but at least there was something to show for it. A strange sense of elation began to bubble within Ningirsu. His sister had given her life for this world. Now it was time for him to create a new world for her. Now that Ningirsu had the mechanical doll's power, the second step to build the Orcus Babel could finally begin. He did this all for his sister. It doesn't give him a right to treat the world like this. Well, time to see how this chapter ends and move on to the next one. Although we may not get a chance for a duel, at least we'll still have a lot more story yet. Don't worry, I can definitely promise you that, everybody. The Crusadia head towards where Ningirsu was. However, before they could reach it, they had to get past the countless Orcus weaponry. The Orcus were merciless as they were numerous, and the Crusadia suffered greatly as they tried to fight their way through. In the heart of the battle, Arum began to feel within the encrusted Babel where dwelled a power similar to that of the key. The mechanical vessels used that were whatever little the key's power, they had inherited and activated the encrusted Babel. From the depths of the tower, a great light was released, and the temple itself seemed to almost fall away with it as the beam stretched into the sky above. No! The activation must be stopped! Arum thought as he dashed towards the machinery. However, before he could move any further, Ningirsu appeared before him. It was the first time that he had seen each other since the tragedy long ago. Their eyes met with the chaos of the battle. Arum opened his mouth to speak. Why? He asked. Why would you want to do what What do you want anything to do with the Great Darkness? Why put our planet under threat like this? Why did you create this spiraling tower and this army of mechanical weapons? Ningirsu had only one answer for him. For Eve. It was the only reason he needed. For his sister, he was willing to activate Babel to strike the World Legacy World 1 down from the skies and break the Earth's surface, so he could awaken the slumbering World Legacy World Ark and use its influence over life and death to revive Eve's soul. Then, after the Great Darkness had been freed from within the Earth, he was going to use its power to resurrect Eve as a celestial being. Now that he had heard the truth from Ningirsu, Arun readied his sword and knew he had to stop this at all cost. Ningirsu didn't budge and instead swung his lance in return. No one was going to stand in the way, not even Arun. The swordsman knew that Ningirsu loved Eve more than anyone in the world. That would not make him right to put their entire planet in danger like this. Arun knew that Eve would not want this, even if it meant she could live once more. However, for Ningirsu, there was nothing more he wanted than to see his sister open her eyes again. And if it meant that he had to turn against the entire world, then so be it. Both men had already made up their minds on what they wanted to achieve. Neither wanted to budge, so instead they clashed, but neither could gain a decisive advantage. The old crust Babel activated, and at last, the World 1 had been topped, and when it fell to the earth, it gored the land below, and the resulting shockwave reverberated across the entire planet. I wonder what happened after that. Well, only one way to find out, and that is to see where the World Legacy leads. But although there might not be a duel this episode, don't worry, there will be plenty of duels left to come, as we will be having a lot of duels next week. But if you enjoyed this video and the series to come, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content coming soon. And without any further ado, let us continue on and end the World Legacy saga on where it itself leads in the future. Let's go.
Babel's activation, World Legacy World 1 tore from the sky and fell on the earth. Its tremendous mass pierced the earth below. Just as its devastating shockwave was about to strike the warriors of the Crusader, a blinding light fell upon Arun's eyes, a light even brighter than from the battle with Ibli. Imduk had used the power of the gods to call forth a gigantic barrier. As the gust of destruction blew past them, the barrier was dissipated. Imduk had sacrificed his life to shield the Crusader. With his life force depleted, Imduk falls to the ground. Arun was left speechless as he touches Imduk's fallen body, the body of his invaluable ally. A wave of guilt rushes into his mind, as it did once before. But there was no time for sorrow for either Arun or the Crusader. The fall of the World 1 exposed the World Legacy World Ark and activated it. The fallen Imduk was then consumed by the World Ark. The power of the World Ark has over life and death was infused with the godly power of Imduk. This combination took the form of the two-headed dragon, God Dragon Andric, which then descended toward Arun. The God Dragons had awakened. The shattering power rippled through the planet to reshape each World Legacy into dragonic form.
First Eve, then Ningirsu, and now Imduk too. Oh, this feels, Return of the Jedi-ish right here, but only one way to see how that ends. Here we go.
Even as the World Legacies took the forms of dragons, Ningirsu was not fazed by their threat. Eve's revival. That was the sole thing that pushed him forward. Carrying the body of Eve in his arms, he approaches this mechanical doll. Using the key embedded into it, he should be able to control even the dragonic World Legacies. Ningirsu attempts to revive Eve's soul using the key to control the World Ark and its power over life and death. And finally, at long last, A brother's wish for his sister was to be fulfilled. The doll slowly absorbs Eve's remains. The smile for me again, like used to before. Ningetsu calls upon Eve. Eve and the doll became one. The soul's revival was complete. However, the soul now bound with the machine body was not of whom he sought for. The smile on her face was not the compassionate smile of Eve, but a wicked grin frozen in place. A smile belonging to Lee, who had merged with Eve's soul. The resurrected Lee took control of the puppet, and using the power of the key, she decimated what remained of Eve's soul. She then called upon the now dragonic world legacies and consumed them, growing into enormous size. By consuming Eve's remains and the 5 dragons, Lee turned into a monster known as Nightmare, incarnation Italy. Italy then used the power of the key and the world legacy to create a crawler as large as the mountain, named Deus Ex Crawler. Arum and his allies noticed that the spinal prostitution stretching from the Daesus was connected to the sealed great darkness. As they approached to stop it, a dreadful black dragon brought their way. It had been consumed by a deadly force and became Italy's vanguard. It used to be Imdog. Now he became world legacy god dragon Marduk. Okay, yeah, final battle, here we come everybody! After the battle with the Orc Crust and being engulfed in the shattering world, the Crusadia was left barely standing. Now the world legacy god dragon Marduk stands in their way. Was it inevitable that the great darkness would fall into Lee's hands? Just Sarum was about to give in. A flying dragon lands before Italy. It was god dragon Justia. From the forests of the stars. My English again. The shimmering blue dragon used its power to rip out Eve's body that was bound to Italy. In that moment it began to shine brighter, enveloping the area with a flash. Then the light gathers. As Arum opened his eyes, he sees the figure of a young girl. The kind eyes of the girl he knew so well. Ningirsu's sister, his childhood friend. Their time in the village, their quest for the world legacy. He shared his hardships and joys with her. It was none other than Eve. She had supposedly been destroyed by Eve, yet she stood before his eyes. Arum and Eve were reunited once again. Yet there was no time to rejoice, as another calamity soon occurred. Italy's body now separated with the key and its inheritor, Eve, could no longer control the world legacy and went into overdrive. Italy howls at Arum, and Eve turned to Marduk, who had suffered a similar fate. To save their friend Imduk from the deadly force possessing him, they attempt to call upon his soul. Their calls drive it from his body and awaken his soul from the wind. The awakened Imduk amplifies his life force and is reborn as the divine dragon, world chalice god dragon, Al-Marduk. Even during this transformation, Italy's rampage continued. And at last, the monstrosity Dogok Deus Ex Crawler reared its head. Upon seeing this abomination, Eve explains, this was the true form of the great darkness. It was the embodiment of the divine power, world gears, of feriological demiurgy. Okay, let's see how the story continues on. Ningirsu originally attempted to use the key in the machine body to control the dragonic world legacies, and thus tried to revive Eve's soul. However, this the predecessor failed. It instead awakened Lee, who took control of her body and spirit. As Ningirsu falls into despair, a miracle before his eyes. A shining blue dragon appears and fuses with Eve's remains. As a result, his sister, the person he cherished more than anything else, had returned. Was he dreaming? Is this real? What had happened? As Ningirsu considers this, he feels something reaching out into his soul. It was what remains of his fading mind, belonging to the vessel made into house Eve's soul.
It was an echo of the doll's final thoughts. It was nothing more than an artificial body. But perhaps, through the power of its host, or because the power of the key, the empty vessel grew a consciousness that was either Eve or Lee, whose conscience belonged to, or if it was similar to humans, the doll did not know. However, it still had a heart to care for its master. When the newly revived Lee attempted to erase the soul of Eve, the doll transferred Eve's soul to the World Legacy World Chalice in the Forest of the Stars and sacrificed itself to save her. Ironically, it was the same method Lee used to deceive humankind, but Lee failed to notice as the purity of the doll's heart was indistinguishable from Eve's. Having heard this final echo, Ningirsu clutched the sash that he had belonged to Eve, the doll, the Galatea, and stood with renewed determination. Good to have you back, Ningirsu. It's really good to have you back. At last the great darkness, the avatar of divine power had arrived, world gears a theological demiurge. Facing such an overwhelming foe, Arum remembered a passage from the Legend of the Star Heroes. To fend off the great darkness, Arum informs Eve and his Crusadia allies of his plan of action. His plan was to inherit the key, which Knight Blue Sky had once attempted and failed. He aims to use the power to combine the gathering world legacies into a single entity. Assisted by Eve and his allies, he begins the unification. Upon realizing Arum's plan, the desperate nightmare incarnation Italy attempts to stop him. Imdok and the Crusadia gave their all to defend Arum and Eve, however, Italy's attack was tremendous. Just then, a man with a sash clenched his fists and came forward to face the challenge. It was Ningirsu. He gathered all the remaining parts up from the Babel and across them forged a colossal spear. And with it, he strikes Italy with a ferocious blow. Gathering all of his might, Ningirsu then forges his final and ultimate creation, a creation intended to protect the divine reincarnation of Eve. It was a colossal combining every Orcust and even the creator himself. Ningirsu, the Orcust of the Evening Star, had been born. Italy continued her rampage, still desperate for the divine prowess. Ningirsu, now with the power of a machine god, did not hesitate while striking with this spear. Subjecting to this fierce assault, Italy's body began to fall apart. And even yet, Lee's tainted spirit was obsessed with obtaining godhood. With her sanity gone lost, Lee used Deus Ex Crawler to forcefully bind her soul to the world legacy. In response to her tainted mind, Demiurge loses all control. The overflowing power of the gods was enough to accelerate the destruction of the planet. Arum and Eve continued the key's ascension, and their allies stand to defend the two. The planet's destruction looked inevitable, but not a single soul was about to give up. Each and everyone stood firm to fight against the divine power. And at last, the ascension was complete. With Arum having inherited the key, he wielded the power from every world legacy as the legendary world hero. Mech Knight Crusadia AMVS, starlit hero, your sword swathed in light. May you triumph over the great darkness! Arum wields his powers to evade, block, and neutralize the thrashing waves of destruction, and he gradually closes in on the rampaging world gears of Phreology Demiurge. Making his way inside, it was as if he had been guided towards its innermost sanctum. In the sanctum awaited Lee, not in her fairy form, instead she had the form of a human. It was a faint reminder of the consciousness, faced with a woman who had so stubbornly strived to attain the god powers Arum asked. Why did you go down this path? Lee, standing in front of him, didn't open her mouth. Instead, her obsessive thoughts and memories that preyed the surrounding area rushed into a room through the key he had held. Thirst for knowledge. As a woman of science and the pursuit of truth. If it was only so simple, the world may have not ended this way. But Lee's ambitions were that out of the ordinary. She wanted to discover the truth behind the legends and she didn't hesitate to seek the divine power for herself. Was this merely a coincidence or an inevitable fate? The calamity came because Eve lived in an era in which the key existed and society was highly developed. More thoughts and memories rushed into our room. This time it was Lee's nightmarish plan.
The divine powers will be mine.
To obtain them requires a complete dominance over the power of the key. However, the overdeveloped civilization of machines had set the power of the earth. As such, humans of that era could not commune with the planet, and thus could not become the successor of the key. If civilization must fall, so be it. Lee used the Project Met Knight, and even her own death as a means to bring destruction to the world. After an eternity, she waited for the earth and its inhabitants to heal, and to find the true heir of the key. And now the time had come. As this glee in meeting Eve and her excitement gaining control of her rushed into it, our room clutched the key with anger and sorrow. Lee was driven nothing more than obsessive curiosity. There was no sacrifice too great for her goal. She had destroyed a civilization and toyed with the lives of many. Through her actions she did not bear malice. They were nothing more short of evil. Oh, Eve, I am so sorry. The Crusadia World Legacy in Eve. Countless times she tried to hide her true intentions, and ultimately she attained divine power. World Gears, a Furology Demiurgy, the primordial form of all gods, a vessel allowing divine deeds in accordance with the will of its controller, the program of transformation. Those who had become gods eventually lost control of the power of destruction and were decimated, leaving only the key. To avoid that fate herself, Lee laid out her plans carefully. She integrated the crawler and its hive mind to achieve complete control over its divine powers. Also it was intended, in the face of Eve and Imduk's will to sacrifice their own lives, the miracle achieved by the machine doll and Ningirsu's determination, Arun became the successor, overcoming sorrow and uniting the people along his journey. Lee still could not comprehend how her plan had been foiled by the combination of their willpower. As the remnants of Lee's mind vanished, a source of enormous power remained unclaimed. Arun, as a successor, needed to make a choice. The demiurge corrupted by Lee's evil had already rampaged across the land and reduced it to rubble. The power of destruction once sealed by the gods grew stronger yet again. The power of creation that served as the planet's core was mostly extinguished. Memories of his journey came back to him. The memories of his loyal friends and allies. Was this he must do as the successor of the key? After a moment it seemed like an eternity. Arun made his decision. As if in response to his will, the power of the key was released. Arun and Demiurge turned into a ray of light and merged into a single entity. Amidst a dying world, a new god was born. Here was Avida, rebuilder of worlds. Arun, now wielding unpredicted power equal to the gods, slowly rised as his key and gave command. The decision he made was his. Bring back all those whose lives lost amidst this war over the world legacy. And by rising me to godhood, allowing me to continue to end the reign of the gods and prevent conflict over the divine power from happening ever again. This seemingly conflicting commands were the result of his wishes. Perhaps this was blasphemy, a choice no human will have the right to make. But this is that what Arun chose, and so Avida, rebuilder of worlds, started the program. The crumbling earth turned into particles of light and gathered before Avida, rebuilder of worlds. All was engulfed in blinding light. A truly heroic sacrifice. Goodbye, Arun. Countless times have passed since that battle. The war over the world legacy.
At its climax, a room wished for the revival of the planet and the lives lost. He then disappeared without a trace. The planet was once destined to be destroyed by the destructive power of Divine. However, the battle scars of war had vanished like an illusion. Lush green nature fills the land, and life blossomed as it always used to. In a world without a room, one final gift was left for Eve, the key that controls the fate of the planet, the sword with the power of the World Legacy. The World Legacy World Key. Eve, with the sword from her room in hand, set out on a journey to remember the planet that her beloved brother protected. Indok accompanies them, and Ningirsu watches over them from afar. Born anew as the protector of Eve and the planet, he is tasked with ensuring Arun's wish is realized. Accompanying him, he supports Eve from the shadows in a now peaceful land is the fairy Galatea. Under the glistening starlight, Eve takes the sword in her hand, and it shines faintly. She and Indok follow the ray of light towards the sky. Where does the world go from here? Hope is abundant once more. Eve carries forth, guided by the world legacy to what lies beyond.
And with that, oh boy, that is the end of the Legend of the Star Heroes and an end of another fantastic video. So, if you enjoyed this video and the series to come, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content coming soon. Don't worry, we will be going back to 3 archetypes a week, maybe 3 to 2. And next week we will be looking over the Forces of Justice, where we will be covering the Light Swarm, the Fairies who paint the weather, where we will be discussing the weather painters, and the Herald's Guidance, where we will be going over the Herald's Guidance. And that was a pretty long story, so yeah, although it was a little bit extensive and there were hardly any duels, I hope everyone has had a good time with all the same. And without everybody here, my friends, my families and amigos, I would not be here today without all your support. And I'm very thankful for all of you coming here today as another legend comes to an end. And boy, was it was an emotional one. I'm not gonna lie. Good job, Konami. Good job. So, for everyone here at SHOUTOUT, Performance Walls over for the Mass Legion, and everyone the SHOUTOUT Patrol made by Family Manny Posse, thank you so much for joining me on this fantastic quest, this end to the Legend of the Star Heroes, and I'll see you all next time for more Archetype Legends coming soon, or next week. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Hope you all had a fun time today, and I'll see you all next time. Definitely going to need an H2O break after all that reading, but I hope it was a good time all the same. Thanks for coming, everybody. You're all amazing. I'll see you all next week, everybody. Stay safe. Bye-bye.